This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, miniatures, and paints, discount prices at miniaturemarket.com. Hey everybody, it's your old pal Rob. Now today I am taking a clip from my recent podcast. Last Wednesday we had Hermann Luttman. He decided to stop in and be the very first guest on the podcast. So you haven't seen the podcast, you can download it anywhere. It's Rob's Tabletop World podcast. This is a series where we're going to be having a lot of guests and some really big names, hopefully, that we're going to interview and not do the typical joke fest and just make light of things, but talk about some serious issues and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoy this. This is an hour-long interview with none other than Hermann Luttman. Hey everybody, welcome to Rob's Tabletop World podcast. As always, I have dogs barking in the background, but today, my friends, today is the very first guest that we ever have on this podcast. And we've been doing this podcast for a little while now, but we just don't have any guest. I'm not that cheap. All right. I pay the big bucks and I bring in the big stars. Okay. One of the greatest designers ever to live. Oh, none other than the great Hermann Luttman.
Hey, Rob, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here and be your first guest.
That was some freaking, intro. I mean, I swear to God, they should have gave you the Oscar for that one, bro.
Absolutely.
Now,
I appreciate the kind words. I do.
Oh, I don't know how many times I've told you offline, not to butter your bread, but how much I appreciate all your work and your friendship as well. We've known each other for a few years now, and we've got quite a few stories that we could tell. A lot of them that we don't tell. But
I was actually trying to think of when we've been friends. First time we met, I believe, was at Origins 5 years ago.
I think it was 5 years ago at Origins, believe it or not.
Yeah, you were hanging around with the Undead Viking, I think, and some other.
Oh, people. How washed up is he? How washed up is he? Boy, did he crash hard, that poor guy.
Yeah, but you and I obviously had spoken before that time, so I mean,
yeah, but we finally got to meet each other face to face. Matter of fact, I think I was working the booth. I was working the booth for Board Game Geek.
I think you were, yeah.
Which I was doing the interviews and stuff like that, and I had a lot of fun doing that. But to work a booth at a gaming convention and then try to run around, do stuff for your channel.
That's hard. I remember working when I worked for Victory Point Games. I didn't run their booth, but I worked in their booth for a couple of years at WBC. And that was like a freaking full-time job. I mean, that was worse than my day job. It was constant. I loved meeting everybody, believe me. To meet people who, like your designs and want to talk about the hobby and your games is great. But it's 24/7. It's just constant interactions.
Oh, it drove me nuts. And then, like an idiot, I went to Gen Con with them when normally I would just basically, try to, like Miniature Market would give me a ticket and, I would pay for my hotel room or whatever. And then I could run around, do whatever I needed to do. Not that I ever got a chance to play a game.
Well, of course not.
No, because I was too busy filming, and I always felt this obligation to try to bring the convention to people that can't go. If you really think about it, for the amount of people that convention holds, and it's one of the biggest conventions there is, Gen Con.
Right.
And the number of people that don't get to go. And then you see these videos, well, I'm here at Gen Con having the best time of my life. And I was like, that's not fair to people. Why don't I go around and try to show them what it's about, make them feel like they're there, and do something a little different?
That's funny you should say that, because I just saw, I watched Justegard's videos of, what is it, Game On, I think. There's a Game On convention. I think it's in Washington, and he did exactly what you do: is just go to table and talk to the participants. And
Yeah, he stole what I did.
Yeah,
is what you're saying. Theater.
Yeah, basically, he stole your gig. Yes.
Well, I did set the benchmark because people used to say that those were some of their favorite videos that I ever did. Was the Gen Con coverages, because when I started doing it, it was early days. I remember the first one I went to, I think it was 48 or 47 or something like that. It was a couple before 50.
Wow.
And I went with Tom Vassell, and it was pretty interesting. He would give me a shift, but the rest of the time he just did whatever he wanted to do.
Right.
And Tom was real good about stuff like that, believe it or not. And I was just amazed. Of course, half my time, I think I got the most exercise I ever got in my life, because I would buy like 400 games, run down to the UPS store,
right,
pack them all up, ship them, then run back, buy more, go there, ship them, run 4 blocks from the thing. And it's 100 degrees in Indiana when they would have it, August.
I always said the same thing about Origins, because we stayed at the main hotel there, and you'd think that the convention's right next to the hotel, but it's like a mile away down these corridors, right?
Oh God, yeah.
And to go back to your room that's an hour experience to get back there and up to the elevators, and oh my God, there was so much walking.
And the Origins, I can't believe how much that has fallen off. Now, I haven't been since before COVID and that whole disaster. Those were the last ones I went to, and I'm planning on going this year. But
I went in October, which was the delayed one, because
yes,
in June. So I went in October, and I drove up, which was nice because I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee now. So it's a 5-hour drive to get to Columbus, Ohio, which was great that I didn't have to fly. And I met my buddies from New York there, and I agree, it was not the same, and I didn't expect it to be the same, but it was pretty sparse, I gotta say. So it's going to take a while to get back to where it was, I think. Well, any convention, really.
I agree, and the thing that I'm going to go one last time. I'm going to go one last time to Origins, one last time to Gen Con, whether I do it both this year. But, kind of my swan song, tip of the hat, I'm done. Let the young kids do it, it's too crowded. There's so much drama that goes on, as you know.
Right.
That Origins is famous for that bar there.
Yes. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, whatever it is. And I never went there. I was in bed half the time before. I would go over across the street, get whatever food I could get at those little vendors there.
Yeah, the food there's great. Yeah.
The food market. And I was just like, okay, let me bring it up to a room. And then I'd be in bed sleep early. I'd get up at the crack of dawn, go down to the gym, and then start my day running around trying to film everything.
Well, I have not been to Gen Con, mostly because when I watched some of your stuff, I'm like, oh my God, that place is bad. You get claustrophobic.
It's too much. It was too much at one point. They downsized it though, according to one of the vendors I talked to. He went there and because of everything that's happened, they've taken a hit, unfortunately, but it's starting to come back.
Yeah. That's kind of why that's why I liked Origins, because you get that big convention feel, but it was not totally overbearing like Gen Con. So
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. But half the vendors aren't going anymore.
I know, and I'm not sure if that's a thing in the industry because of online sales or something like that, or if it's just because of the disease. That like we all got convention crud. I mean, that was a thing for years and years and years. You went to these conventions knowing that, hey, I got a chance of getting some kind of flu or bug or something from everybody. It's just it's all these people piled together, sitting around with hundreds of people in close proximity. So it was kind of part of the deal, right?
It was that, but also the industry learned a very hard lesson. for the amount of games that you're going to sell at these conventions. Now, you got to remember, they got to pay for hotel rooms. They got to pay for the space. They got to pay for people to come and set everything up, especially if you're a bigger company. Okay. Then you got to ship all the product in.
Right.
Okay.
I could vouch for that because Mark Walker told me that exact same thing, that Flying Pig won't go to any more conventions because it's too expensive, too cumbersome. Like what you said before, he doesn't get a chance to go play games, right? Or just be entertained because everything's work. And in the end, yeah, it's good for face-to-face interaction with customers and all that, but the expense is ridiculous because he's got to pay for everybody in his crew to come and stay and eat and all that kind of thing, and haul in all that product. And his product's fairly small compared to, let's say, if a Simon goes there or somebody. You're talking about a tractor trailer full of stuff.
And the thing is, for the amount of games that you sell, people forget you 10 minutes after they leave that convention.
Right.
And unless you're in with the in crowd, this isn't the trash anybody, but it's true. Okay. Unless you're in with the in crowd, they're not going to showcase your game. Okay. They're not going to give you the time. In Mark's case, wargaming is a very, unfortunately, niche thing when it's the basic foundation for gaming. If you really think about it, any gaming, go all the way back to the days of the Romans. How do you play board games? Well, war games were the very first.
Well, in the 70s, wargaming was the hobby gaming of gaming, right? If you were in Monopoly or Clue or something, you were playing war games. It was mainstream. And I know it because I played them. I introduced people at college to games, and I'd have a room full of 8 people, men and women, playing Napoleon's Last Battles.
It was the same with me. Everybody would gather around. We were playing Panzer Blitz or Tactics, and then no, I think everybody chiming in. I think you should move that. It was a lot simpler time, and it was the heartbeat of everything. Those bookcase games, you could take them anywhere.
Right. So that was kind of a cool, edgy hobby part of the board gaming industry. So that
absolutely,
and that changed, of course, with, I guess, Settlers of Catan. I guess you could start there, but
where do you really start? Where it kind of took that turn? Is it the dungeon crawl games? Was it Hero Quest that kind of took that turn, and then
Right. Well, D&D and wargaming kind of worked parallel, but I mean, we had a lot of crossover in our wargaming club. Guys would go play D&D and back and forth. So I guess you could construe that as being part of the same edgy part of
Dragons. Battle Masters, all that kind of stuff, which kind of spun off of that GW machine, which took off in the late 80s and 90s. Whew.
Yeah. And there were a few hobby games one of the games I've been playing probably the longest of all, and I played it with my hardcore war game friends, is Robo Rally. I've been playing that game.
Oh, God, yeah.
I've been playing that game for 30 years or however long it's been out. And even my hardcore miniatures gamers and board gamers, we take time to play that game. So it's
amazing how a game like that gets buried and forgotten.
Yeah. I still have a copy, and I still bring it out every once in a while, and our kids love it still when they come and visit. But that's what we're playing.
I'm looking at your shelf behind you. Is that Defenders of the Realm?
Yeah, that's one of my favorites right there.
I got it right over there.
I got Street Masters in the middle. I just got Massive Darkness 2. That's the 2 huge boxes, and that's
yep. I got that. See, our shelves mirror each other.
Big black box there.
Yeah,
that's your fault. That's Escape the Dark Castle, everything.
I got that right over there. And the funny thing is Defender of the Realm is sitting right on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, a lot of this is your fault. So that's one of the reasons.
It's what I do, bro. It's what I do.
You've cost me a lot of money. You've taught me to enjoy a lot of games that I hadn't heard of before.
Well, I appreciate that coming from you, especially coming from you. I want to talk about a game that you've recently done. And that I'm going to hold it up to the camera because I may, depending on how this saves, because we're experimenting with this, folks,
Right.
and we're taping this for the podcast. But if the video works where I can download both of them, what I'm thinking of doing is actually putting this video up about a week or so after the podcast, to give you the full, the full
experience,
full push. But recently, our good friend Mark Walker, who, let me tell you something, I don't know how many times I've sung this man's praises.
Yeah.
Okay, he never hears it. Okay, and he thinks I forget him, but I never forget this guy. The games that he has put out are in my top 50, and some of them are made by you, of course. This newest one that just came out from his Tiny Battles line, The Hills of Death, Champion Hill.
Right.
All right. Your love affair for Gettysburg is unparalleled. When you take a look at the things that you have done, particularly one that is sitting right there, I'm going to move that box. A most fearful sacrifice.
Don't let it hit you on the head.
Yeah, no, well, it's a hero. It's a Hero Quest figure I got to paint at some point, along with everything else. But your Gettysburg games are just, the Civil War games that you do are just so detailed and so smart. But the thing that gets me the most about the stuff that you do is you make it where it's not so rule intensive that you have to have a degree in, mechanical science to play a game.
Right.
And go ahead.
No, and that's exactly why I design the way I design is.
Now, the guy that we both are big fans of, Richard Launius, okay, and everything that he's done, who, when we get a chance, we have to get together with him. He's invited me up multiple times, and I just haven't had the time with everything going on to go up there to find a weekend that I can get up there. And said we could stay at his house, have a great time. All right, with him and Pete from Shirey from CMON. He said to me, he's gotten to an age where he doesn't want to design these complicated games. Right. He just wants to play something fun and to the point. And this came to a boiling point with me, and I didn't realize it until I got Frostpunk, which is
I've seen it around. Yeah.
I tried to watch a video that Paul Grogan did. Okay, it was an hour long. Okay. Half an hour for the setup. Now, this game does everything I could ever want a game to do, because if you remember, also in the 80s, there was complexity, and you and I and Richard, we were into playing those complex war games. Okay. But then you get to a certain point where, after all these years, I found that, man, I just want to get it to the table, play it, have a good time, and walk away.
Well, and that's interesting you say that. That's exactly my experience. So I think most of us go through this pattern of, so when we start out in gaming, we're younger, we have all this free time, so we have time to explore all this, right? Have time to set it up and all that. Then I get married, end up with 3 kids and 2 jobs, and now my gaming time becomes, it's at a premiere, right? I mean, I when I get the game, I want to get in there. So it started to get to the point where, we were trying to play these complex war games, and I'd go to gaming night, and it's an hour and a half to 2 hours of setting it up, getting through the rules, playing a turn and a half, realizing you did a whole bunch of stuff wrong, and then having to set it up again, or having it never get to the table again ever. And after a while, I'm like, what am I doing with my time here? This is my spare fun time, right? Get away from real life for a second and just go out on an adventure and have a good time. And I think that's what happens is now you evolve to a point where you're like, I want to be able to sit down and play a game to conclusion in an evening, or in a great circumstance, if you have a longer gaming session, maybe play the game twice, right? Or play.
Right.
So I gained an appreciation for that, for having, what you call an accessible game. a game that you don't have to spend hours and hours setting up and learning the rules and then arguing about the rules,
Mm-hmm.
which is which is definitely a characteristic of some of the more complex war games. You hear all sorts of horror stories about arguing about supply rules and all that, and then you're wasting your whole the bottom line is you're wasting your whole gaming time,
Right.
which is at a premium. And so yeah, when I got into design, and that's what actually first attracted me to Victory Point games. That's how I got into designing. So Victory Point games was doing game designs that I could get to the table, that I could play in an afternoon, that I could play solo if I needed to. And that attracted me right away to that design style. So that's, how I got involved in the design part of it, is through Alan Emmerich giving me an opportunity to do that.
One of my favorite videos I've ever done was I was at Gen Con, and I don't remember. You remember Tina?
Yeah.
I never heard of Nemos War.
Right.
And he was there, and I saw the game, and it was the last day. I go, why don't we film this? And I sat down and I played a few turns with him, and we taped it. And it was one of the best experience and one of my favorite videos I have ever done. If you ever get a chance, check it out. He's a riot.
Alan's very good with public speaking and demonstrating games and allowing it. He's definitely a personality. He used to run the auction at Consum World Expo out in Tempe.
Oh yeah.
He ran the auction there, and it was just people would go just not to buy anything, just to watch him do his thing.
I had seen him a couple of years later, actually at Board Game Geek Con, and he was doing something else. It was towards the end of Victory Point there. And he saw me and he goes, you know something? That was the most fun I ever had making a video. And for me, that was it. I said, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I get it. No, we had such a good time, and it was just so good. And it's one of those things I'll never forget. If I had to do top 10 favorite videos I've ever done, that has to be pretty close to the top.
Well, and that's because he had the basic philosophy of gaming is supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm. Then I wanted to go buy the game.
A lot of people get offended by that statement, but
yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, if you're not having fun while you're gaming, you're doing it wrong. I understand, exactly. Right? And granted, I understand that people game for different reasons, right? Some people want to do it because it's relaxing. Some people want to do it for escapism. Some people just want to do it for fun. Some people want to do it because they want to outsmart everybody else and prove that they're smarter than everybody else. That's fine. Everybody does it for a different reason. I do it because I want to have a good time. I want to laugh with my friends, and that's not to say you don't try to figure out the strategies of the game or the mechanics and how to manipulate them. But you want to play with people also that if you make a good move, they go, hey, that was a really cool move. That was clever. Congratulations. Not, God damn it, now I'm going to get into the rule book and see if I can rules lawyer you to show that you did it wrong or something.
Yeah, the groups nowadays, because gaming has gotten so big, people are so different. And I find that people want to game alone more now than with a group, because, each one, it becomes a drama circle.
And some people should game alone because some people will game and they have, analysis paralysis because they want to make the best move possible without being able to read the room and see that you're holding up everybody else. Yeah. So that's great. If you want to play a game because you want to extract the best score, the best move possible at every moment, you should probably be playing that solitaire and do that in the comfort of your own home and work your puzzle out, right, in your own time. Well, we've had too many, I've had experiences where, and I can tell you, I won't name names, but I know there was a game once that this guy was beating us all by, it was about 5 of us. He was beating us by 50 points. It was the last round. And he sat there literally, and I mean literally, for 20 minutes figuring out how to beat us out by 51 points. Right? And everybody just sat there staring at him. And we were
Yeah,
like,
you want to kill him? Will you just go?
okay, thanks. That's the last time we're going to play with you.
Oh God! All I ever want to do is just have fun when I get a chance to game and just enjoy myself, and that's the end of it. It's more about getting lost in whether you're playing a character. If you die, it's funny, it's hysterical, and I always said, even a bad game at the end of the day is still a game.
Absolutely,
it's still a game.
And you want that. For me, it was that sense of adventure. I mean, I was an
Oh
accountant
God!
for 40-something years, so I mean, I was good at my job, but it's not the most exciting job in the world. I got pretty bored a lot. So when I gamed, I wanted like, okay, A, I don't want to do spreadsheets. B, I don't want to do any writing or math, complicated math. I just want to go have an adventure and have some fun.
Yeah,
And
I think that's all you can ever ask.
Right. And you mentioned Mark before. That I worked for Mark. Well, let me backtrack. I actually admired Mark because I was a huge fan of his World at War system when he had lock and load. And I finally at WBC one year, I finally got to go up to him at his booth and meet him and say, World at War to me is one of the best systems ever designed. It's right in my wheelhouse. You made modern combat playable. Exactly what we were just talking about, right?
Right.
Instead of like, I'm going to measure how far this missile goes every 15 seconds and does the wind deviate it? No, Mark made a game that was chit pull, exciting, fun, and still fairly realistic as far as we can tell. And that to me was right in my wheelhouse. So I walked up to him and and then later on, years later, we got, I don't even know how it started, but I ended up designing for him. It was Tiny Battle. It might have been Invaders, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it was the trilogy Invaders.
Invaders from Dimension X. And
which you can get at Tiny Battles, I believe. Let's plug them. I mean, go to Flying Frog, check out Tiny Battles, check out all these games that Herman's done. I mean, the sci-fi trilogy is one of my favorites.
Well, thank you.
But
we became good friends because Mark has the same philosophy you do and I do, which is we would play other games together and just have a blast. I mean, he's like me, man, and we're getting up there, we're rolling chunks of dice and yelling and laughing, and you were just having a great time. And since then, now we've become best friends. I see him. I go up to Virginia every 3 or 4 months, and we just game for the weekend. And it's a blast.
Tell Mark thanks for the invite. Tell Mark thanks for the invite. I'll remember that. Okay. Everybody, everything that I was just plugging, forget. No, but I mean, some of the games that you've done. I mean, we could sit here and talk about Dawn of the Zed, which is unbelievable. We could talk about, like I said, A Most Fearful Sacrifice, which is probably one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. And
that was a
magnificent style. Jeez.
Yeah. Most Fearful Sacrifice was a labor of love. That was just something that Mark and I decided, you know what? Everybody keeps asking me, you've done pieces of Gettysburg.
Yes.
When are you going to do all of Gettysburg? And I said, well, if we're going to do all of Gettysburg, we're going to do it big. And who else? Who does it bigger than Flying Pig Games, right? So, and then of course we got the amazing and late great Rick Barber to do the map.
Yeah.
That map
was the last map he ever did.
That was his masterpiece.
Yeah.
That map is the most detailed study of the Gettysburg battlefield I've ever seen. And
you could just lay it out and look at it for days. And if you haven't seen it, folks, I've got a couple of videos out there on my YouTube channel. Check it out. I mean, there are just some great videos that really cover that game. Matter of fact, I got to do a live playthrough of it one of these days. Now that we're finally settled here on the farm. Another thing that you guys will be seeing coming up very, very soon is the Hills of Death, Champions Hill. Now, where did this come from in your mind, oh dear one?
So, Mark asked me to do a small Civil War series for Tiny Battle because he lost the rights to the Civil War series he had before that.
Okay,
it was, but so I said, all right, of course I'll do it. Obviously it's going to be something simpler. And I said, what I'd like to do is do more obscure battles, right? Not the usual, Antietam, Chickamauga, Gettysburg, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, everybody's done it 15 times.
So let's try to find battles that have not been covered that well, or maybe that people are afraid to cover for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Champion Hill is just a game, is a battle that I've always been interested in. It's a very important battle because it basically opened the door to the siege of Vicksburg, which many people consider even the fall of Vicksburg to be more important than Gettysburg, right? Because it opened up that whole Mississippi Western front. And so I decided, all right, we'll do that. We'll do Champion Hill. And then Claude Whalen's going to do the next game, and that's called Conquering the Valley. And that's the battles of Cross Keys and Port Republic. And then I'm going to do one on the Battle of Fredericksburg, which there's not a lot of games on Fredericksburg, believe it or not. And that's a significant battle as well, also not covered much. So we're going to try to do more obscure battles. We're going to get one designer, Dale Gutt, to do Brandy Station. So anything, I'm always willing to take suggestions, of course, too.
Very cool. Now, I have to stop the segment right here because Anchor does something weird where you can only put 30 minutes at a time, but we will be right back after this break.
Got it.
And we're back with none other the great Hermann Luttman. Do I butcher that name?
No,
Luttman,
right?
Huh?
You got it.
Okay, I'm just making sure because, boy, I can't say anything right. But we're back here with you again and just talking about some of these fantastic games that you've created. And you've got something coming up and boiling up with GMT, too, which is really interesting.
My goodness, you talk about big projects. As a matter of fact, I just got an email an hour ago from Ken Cohen, who's the developer from GMT, who's developing the Plum Island Horror. And it's 98% done now.
Wow.
Yeah. He just sent me a list of the things that I'm going to be getting in the next day or so that I have to check over. It's interesting. Ken is one of their in-house developers, and I'll tell you, GMT has really become, they're quite the professional organization now. When I did my first game at any cost, which was 5 years ago or something like that.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt that was my first project with GMT, and I just felt kind of like they're just leaving me on my own. There wasn't any guidance per se. It was like, here, design a game. Okay, we'll take it. And I was like, yeah, but do you like it? I was, now it's very structured, right? They got these guys, and Jason Carr and Ken Kuhn, and I think there's somebody else, and they're in charge of developing these projects. They have a very tight schedule of what they do next, and the whole process is very, very structured, and that makes me feel very comfortable because I know people are double checking things. Any designers out there will tell you, there's great inner fear that when you get your design, you get your prototype box, you're going to open it up, and the first thing you see is this horrible error that everybody guessed, right? And it's just a little bit more comforting, especially for something as big as Plum Island Horror, because it's not a typical GMT game, right? It's not a war game. It's a horror, multiplayer, asymmetric horror game. And the artwork is going to be totally unique for GMT. So, that aspect requires more and more checking and double checking. And there's just a lot of little bits in there that you don't normally get in just a standard game on the Battle of the Bulge. It's going to have standees. It's going to have different shaped tiles and counters. It's pretty amazing.
I'm looking forward to it. I cannot wait to see this. And it went pretty quickly on the P500 too.
It went fairly quickly, yeah. It's up at around 1180 now on the pre-orders, and I suspect as it gets closer and closer, it'll probably jump pretty quickly. I'm sure people are hesitant because they're looking at it going, "What the heck is that? What is this from GMT?" Right?
Yeah.
But Gene told me he wanted to make a conscious effort to start tapping
branching out
other aspects of the market. There's so many gamers out there. Let's get some games out there that tap into the mainstream market a little bit more. So,
I mean, they've just been fantastic through and through, and their professionalism is ridiculous. And they're very good to this channel. They've always have been, and I'm very thankful for that. And most of it, I'm thankful because of you, because you introduced me to them. And they always make sure that if they got something new, they pop it out here for me to review it, and I always go through it quickly. And every time I open up a box, I mean, it is the highest quality. Everything's done smart.
Yep.
And when you look at it, it just reminds you of the old days, the Avalon Hill type of, box sets where you can fit them onto a shelf. And the more you get, the more you go, wow, I've got the universe.
I just got a copy of Tank Duel.
Good game.
And that thing is, boy, you talk about, they got player rates for everybody. It's the top-notch quality. The graphics are fantastic. Mike Berticelli did a great job with that game, and it's cool because you can play with 8 people. So
which is insane,
right? You can sit around just shooting each other for hours. It's great.
And the game is just fun, smart, different.
Yep.
I love how the cards work on that, where you turn them over and you run through that deck.
Yeah. It has a little bit of a upfront feel to it, a little bit.
Yes. Yes. Very much so. Very, very.
Right. It is. Look, it's basically a card game. It's kind of like Combat Commander in a sense, because you're kind of tied to how you play your cards. It's card management, but it still feels right, and it's still fun as hell. It's so much fun.
So what's got your interest right now? I mean, what are you playing right now that's got your interest?
It's playing.
Yeah. Playing, or you picked up recently that you said, boy, I gotta bring this in. This is something I want to check out.
Let's see. Some of the stuff I've been getting lately is a little disappointing. I did just get Skytear Horde, which is a battling card game. I haven't even opened it yet. It's still in shrink wrap. It just arrived today.
Did it just come out?
It was on Kickstarter. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my whole thing is I don't back Kickstarters because of half the junk that goes on with them.
Right.
But I usually just wait for it to come retail. That way I'm surprised. And if it doesn't come to retail, I'll hunt it down somehow.
I'll tell you what I really like, and it was just on a whim. I don't know if it was your fault directly or indirectly, but Gears of War, the board game, I absolutely love that thing.
Yep.
I don't know how people haven't exploited that system and done a whole bunch of stuff with it, because it's so much fun, and it's so clever the way the AI works, and the cover thing, and card management, and it just looks good. That game is fun.
It's so good, it's ridiculous. And the thing that kills me about that particular game is I think they said that Descent was a derivative of it, or Descent. I mean, it was a descendant of it, and they used the same mechanics from Gears of War for Descent, which turned out to be this huge game.
Right.
And you never hear too much about Gears of War, which I can never understand because of just how good that game is.
Yeah, it's really excellent.
And people throw themselves on the sword for Descent, even though I think it's kind of, as far as dungeon crawls, it's okay at best.
Yeah, I had Descent second edition, and it was fine for a while, and then it just kind of outstayed its welcome.
It became a race.
Yeah.
I've been looking. Matter of fact, I just started digging it out, and I picked up a few expansions for it. With Star Wars Legion, believe it or not.
I haven't delved into that yet.
I was tired of Star Wars. I didn't want to see anything Star Wars for the longest time.
Right.
And then 3-4 years later, here I am. I'm going, hey, you know what? Let me take a look at this. And I just painted up a whole army of it. I'm playing Cav right now, which is Cav Strike Force, Strike Operations. Do you remember the old hero click? I mean, the Mech Warrior clicks?
Yeah.
Well, there's a story out there that one of the BattleTech guys, who will remain nameless, had their kids sitting at Cav, and we're playing Cav. And what it is Cav is basically that whole system. You step down. Instead of clicking, you have a card and you step down as you take damage. The guy saw it and said, well, this would be cool. And then a couple months later, Mech Warriors came out because his kids were having so much fun with it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And they've redone it. They're doing a whole bunch of things. It's cheap. The rule book is free. And to get the mechs, for what you would pay at Starbucks for 2 coffees, you can have two battle units.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I've been enjoying that. I painted a bunch of that up. I'm trying to think what else. I got my hands into something. That's for sure.
One series I can recommend, thanks to you again, is all of Jason Glover's stuff.
Oh God!
Iron Helm, Gate, Desolate, and Tin Helm. Yeah. And I think he's coming out with something new soon.
Yeah, I saw something where he deleted his store and then put his store back up. That he had some kind of.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that was all about.
Neither was I thought maybe you would know, and I just kind of okay, I'm going to leave it alone. Maybe you just had a bad moment. We all do.
Yeah, definitely. I can't tell you how many times I've run into some problem designing. I'm like, all right, that's it. This is the last I'm doing of this.
God, with this stupid channel, how many times I go, something. All right, you bunch of marks want to go out there and go support this thief's whatever.
It's interesting. Right when I get to that point, I get that one email or that one comment on Facebook or one post on Board Game Geek that just lifts my spirits and go, all right, well, that's why I do this. That
always seems to be the thing. And I start thinking about it. I go, I could walk away from this and just be done with it. I've done everything I could possibly do. I mean, what do I got to prove?
Right.
And then I'll do the same thing. Either somebody will email me, say, hey, I can't thank you enough for this, that, the other, or, something will come out and I'll go, wow, this is brilliant.
Right.
I got to show everybody this.
Right.
And you keep going like an idiot.
Well, one of the things you mentioned accessibility before, and that's kind of one of my driving forces that why I design the way I do is because I want people to actually play my games. So I don't want people to write to me and go, whoa, what a brilliantly complex 80-page rule book you wrote up here and then never play the game. I want people to play the game and enjoy it. That's my goal is to have people write me and go, hey, we had a blast with your game. That's all I really strive to hear.
Yeah.
That people had a good time with it.
Well, I mean, my God. I mean, some of your stuff is historic, and I don't understand why you're not higher on the food chain as far as designers are concerned. And what I mean by that is, we want to talk about Hall of Fames and this one gets in, that one gets in, and so forth and so on. And I just don't understand why a Richard Launius, yourself, for the accomplishment. I mean, for what you've done. I mean, Magnificent Style is the benchmark of so many things. Dawn of the Zeds, probably one of the greatest zombie games ever made. Ever.
Well, thank you. Yeah, which is interestingly out of my hands now. I've talked about doing another edition of it, bringing it back again, talking about accessibility, bringing it back to where the second edition was as far as playability and size and accessibility. Right. The third edition's brilliant. It's a compilation of everything I did plus what Alan Emmerich and his team put on for cooperative play.
Right.
And of course the production of Tabletop Tycoon. But a lot of the comments I get is like, oh, it's got 5 rule books, it's too complex, it's just too much. And granted, it's been very popular, but I also feel like, well, I kind of want to offer people a version of Zeds like it used to be.
Right.
In the first and second editions, where you can just take it out and play it in a couple of hours with your friends and not have a big, wall of resistance as you're trying to learn the game.
Right. So, now, is that something legally you can't talk about? Why we may never see it, or it's held up? Is it owned by somebody?
What, as far as another edition?
Yes.
Well, from what I understand, Alan is working on more expansions for the third edition, and I think they're doing. I don't know if they're doing another Kickstarter or they're republishing. I'm not sure.
He hasn't reached out to you?
I talked to him a couple of months ago
Mm-hmm.
because I mentioned to him that I wanted to do this new version, this, if you want to call it fourth edition, and he was amenable to that. But if I wanted to do anything with Zeds, I think legally I would have to talk to Tabletop Tycoon and say, hey, I want to do another Dawn of the Zeds. Now, of course, theoretically, I could do it and call it something else and go to, I could do that. Nobody could stop me.
We actually talked about doing a space.
You did mention a space-themed States of Siege game, which I think is a brilliant idea. And I don't even know who owns. I know obviously Darren Leveloff designed States of Siege. I don't know if he's got to sign off on any state. If you call it States of Siege, I imagine he would have a say, or VPG, or I don't know. I don't even know who would have a say anymore in it.
The heck with it. Just call it something different and
Exactly.
just kind of
call it something different. And yeah, exactly.
Call it something different.
Other people have used the term Zeds in other games.
They sure did.
Yeah.
And in movies too.
Yeah, I believe that's where I got the idea for it. I was watching I think it might have been 28 Days Later. It was a British zombie movie.
That was a messed up movie.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah. When they ran that fast, that scared the hell out of me more than
that's why it sticks with me, because they were so terrifyingly fast. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm almost sure they called them Zeds in that movie, and that was obviously the British term for Z. The letter Z is Zed. That's why they got that
name. Space Zeds from Planet 9 or something. Something to that. I don't know.
Planet 9 from outer space. Yes.
Planet 9. I was laying in bed, and I usually have YouTube going, and I saw that, and I clicked on it. And the most hysterical thing is I started watching that, and I forgot how bad that was and how good it is.
Oh, Planet 9 from outer space?
Yeah.
We used to, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, we used to go to viewings of it at the local library and stuff. That movie, if you haven't seen it, is just
midnight showings. That and Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. And if you want to see another bad movie, there's a movie called Birdemic, which is Birdemic, Birdemick. C. That's just a C. It is so hysterically bad. You have to, if you like bad movies, Rob, you got to go get it.
I do. I'll have to check it out.
Yep.
God, I mean, I've got every 50s sci-fi movie that you could ever imagine. My collection is just terrifying. And I refuse
That's
to
the whole inspiration of the Invaders series for Tiny Battle. They're all based on a bad 50s sci-fi movie. So
I would love to see a Cronus game. Remember that one?
Oh, is that the one with Sean Connery?
No. That's the one where the thing's like it's a giant robot. It's like a block. It comes from outer space, and it takes. Sean Connery wasn't in that.
No, okay.
John Aston, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm mixing two movies together.
No, I know
which one you're talking about. Yes.
And they had the dome with the two wires, and they ended up.
Yes.
And the feet that were going dun 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 dun, and as it was going through Mexico, it's just like stomping on little villages.
Actually, Fred's working on the fourth game of the Invader series right now. It's called Planet of Doom.
Oh.
And it's going to have the Moss Men.
Oh God!
Type creatures, yeah.
So you need to do a kaiju game too.
Actually, Mark Walker I believe he had a kaiju game designed. If I remember correctly, La Resistance. If you know that game,
yeah.
That was originally a kaiju game.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if that don't beat all. La Resistance was great.
Oh, it's a fun game.
Oh, I think I did it live on the channel too. After 4,000 videos, you forget what you do and what you don't do.
We've both learned to like dice mitigation games, they're kind of fun because you
Right.
have a lot of flexibility with that. So it's an interesting mechanic. You can do it. I just got was it One Deck Galaxy, and they do that where
Did you? That came out?
yeah.
Oh, I got to check that out.
Yeah, you'd like that. That's it's pretty complex. I haven't really gotten a chance to really dig into it because it's pretty.
I played One Deck Dungeon, and I played on my Steam Deck, which is awesome. And I love that game. That game is so much fun. I finally beat the first creature.
But I like the idea of taking dice, and I also have a little game called Dice Conquest by WizKids, I think, and they use all sorts of different D20, D12, and all that, and you have to assign dice to kill things, but everything has a restriction. Like you can't use odd numbers, or you can't use even numbers, or you can't use numbers higher than 6, or
right.
And so it's this puzzly, type of. It's really good.
Have you seen Die in a Dungeon?
Die in a Dungeon? No.
Die in the Dungeon.
Okay.
Take a look when you get a chance. Take a look. I did a video of it and a playthrough of it. Dice mitigation, perfect. It's really it's a lot of fun for a little indie type game.
Right.
But the components are beautiful. It does a great job. It's fun. You can get through it pretty quickly. Very good solo and very good with someone else too.
And honestly, one of the reasons I play all these other games, because I play dungeon crawls and dice games and LCGs, and I love deck building games. Not only do I enjoy them as a player, but I get ideas for game design. War game. A lot of these mechanics, I'm like flabbergasted they're not used in war games, because logically will translate to war games. So I had this new game out by White Dog Games, just came out, called By Iron and Blood. It's the Battle of Königsgrätz in 1866, and I use a whole new activation system there that's based on the Conan the Barbarian game.
Right.
So where you have the track, and it's called the river system. So your activation cost depends on where your cores are on this activation track.
I don't know if I told you about that. I got to send one of these up to you. The Last Crusade. It's a World War II game. And what you do is it's the Germans versus Americans. You're going to lay out land, okay, or cities and stuff like that. And then you're going to have to pay for your units with supply points. So you're rolling dice and you have a certain amount of supply. Now, if you roll 2 1s, that means you only got that much supply for that turn. And good luck trying to buy a unit. And it has air units, it has everything. And then the dice rolling, you go up a tank versus tank. You're rolling that many dice against that, and you're trying to get 5s and 6s to do hits.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's from I think 1995.
Wow.
And I still have a sealed box. Woo. But I mean, I have tons of it, and I
love little. Like we were just talking about Jason Glover's games are like that. Yeah, you got Airborne Commanders is like that.
I gotta send that to you. Yeah, I gotta send that to you.
Airborne Commanders like that. What's the other one? Bomb Run.
Yeah,
those are all nice small card games that have clever mechanics and can be played quickly and still feel right. And I like that.
Yeah. Which it gives you that feel, which is the most important thing. One of the things I love about old school tactical, I mean, how easy is it to get that to the table?
Right.
You can have a big battle in an hour and a half, clean it up, and you felt like you did something.
Right, and it looks awesome.
Oh God. I mean, with all the boards and everything that you have, I mean, I went to the storage unit because I had to put some of it over in the storage unit, and I'm looking what I have for it, and I'm going, my God, this game is so glorious, and there's so many boards for it, and you could do so much with it. It doesn't get the credit it deserves.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, Flying Pig does fantastic production, and like we were talking before about A Most Fearful Sacrifice, we both agreed, people complain, oh, it's 15 square feet of map, it's too big. But Rick Barber's artwork deserves that large. It deserves that kind of treatment. You have big hexes, you appreciate all the detail in there.
Yeah, I mean, how could you complain about that when you got guys that'll go to a convention, spend 7 hours setting up this elaborate system to play 1 hour, 2 hour session?
Yeah, exactly.
Tear
So
it down. We got the next one coming up. Yeah, and
but that's what Point Pick does, right? Nobody does boards and pieces the size and scope and
no, where it's easy to play with, for God's sakes.
right.
This guy doesn't get the credit he deserves, and it drives me nuts because here's a wargaming company that its worst enemy is the wargamer. Okay, that wargamer that has his nose up in the air, that doesn't want to teach that young kid or be patient enough, that thinks, him and his little group, sipping on whiskey are, they're going to live forever. And, we talked about this 1,000 times.
Yeah.
How, you just got that weird war gamer, that the Grugnard or whatever he wants to call himself. And
yeah,
they kill it.
I know who you're talking about. We all know who you're talking about. And I agree with you. And it's, if they want, they can do whatever they want. They can play whatever games they want. But the rest of the industry, when I design these games, I'm thinking like, well, who else can I get to play these games other than the prototypical people, right? Mm-hmm. So little games like Hill of Death or even Most Fearful Sacrifice, because that's a big game, but it's actually fairly easy to play, relatively speaking to other war games.
Yeah, I mean, God willing, I live long enough. I mean, the little runt, he's 2 right now, but 5-6 years from now, what am I going to do? Am I going to break out? Am I going to break out Pacific War to show him, or am I going to take out old school tactical?
Exactly,
where he's actually going to enjoy himself.
And this is why a company like GMT is okay with doing a Plum Island Horror. It's a game that I like to design. It's fun to design.
Yeah.
And if they can get a couple of hundred people who would maybe never go to a war game catalog, draw them in to order this game, and then they start poking around and going, oh, look at Combat Commander or CNC Napoleonics or
Maneuver or
Chariots or even Thunder Alley, like even if it's a non-war
game,
it draws people in to look at your catalog, and maybe they want to examine something else, and maybe you could draw people into war game. Maybe not. Maybe that's being a little pie in the sky, but it's an effort at least.
Yeah, and it just takes a little bit of just a little bit of ingenuity, being open to certain things. I had a friend at a local game store, actually. The guy that owns the store, I go up there every once in a while, and I'll get some paints and stuff. It's easier than sometimes getting it from Miniature Market, and waiting a few days. If I need something and I'm in the middle of a project, I'll go up there. And we have a local convention here, and they have these garrisons that hang around this area. And I tried playing with some of them and spotlighting them a little bit, but they're so it's just a different mentality. But then, you see some of the people that go to these small conventions that are a little timid and want to learn certain things, because you'll see some kids there and stuff like that. And there's your opportunity.
Right.
Show them something. Show them something. Because you should be expanding that. If you want your convention to grow, you need to bring those people in and show them that it's not this massive thing all the time. You can get there. You can get to this complexity, but there are things along the way. There are steps up the ladder to get you to where you want to go.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Richard Launius understands that. That's why a game like Defenders of the Realm is a good gateway game into like, hey, what else is there that's like this? Axis and Allies or whatever.
Richard Borg, he's used that same system for 9,000 years.
David Thompson's been able to breach, get across. Obviously, he's probably the main guy that can get across, has got across to the mainstream.
Yeah.
But we need more of that, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Or else, one day.
I know what you're going to say.
I mean, you see it now in the normal board gaming because of all the the stuff that they do, the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. The price is going up. People don't have disposable income the way they used to. And, it'll never go away, but it will never be like it is right now, where every 2 weeks you've got about 1 million things coming out.
Yeah, that is an issue that we didn't have in the 70s, where it was
No.
one game out and everybody played that game and learned it.
No, and you played it, and you played it, and you played it, and
Right.
you played it, and then 6 months down the road, hey, guess what? Let's put this one on the shelf. We got another one that we can work on.
Right now, you don't even have time to.
I can't even keep up with what comes in now.
Right, and I know
just
that's
try
partially our fault for ordering it all, but it's part of like this idea that like, well, I'll order it and I'll get to it at some point in my life, and it just keeps piling up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, boy, we've talked for a whole hour.
Wow, that was fast.
But we do that. That's how we do things, you and I. We've always done it that way.
That's true.
Yeah. And I don't even know what we accomplished, but I will tell you this much. One of the things that you want to look out is you want to look out for Plum Island coming out from GMT. I think it'll be out probably maybe the summer, fall, somewhere in there.
Yeah, well, it's almost done, and then they send it off to the printer. So I don't know how all that takes, but it's still in the pre. You can still get it for the pre-order price if you want to go to the P500. It's that discount on the P500 is significant. So if you want it, get it now.
Then what you also need to do is write Alan Emmerich over at Victory Point Games and tell him, hey, listen, bro, we want another edition of Dawn of the Zeds. Let Herman loose. Okay, let's get the permissions. Let's make it happen. We will promote it on this channel. We will sell 500 copies alone here. I know that for a fact. And don't forget to go see our boy, Mark Walker. Yeah, the man. Okay, if you want war games that make sense, that aren't overcomplicated, that are smart, history to the T. You take a look at some of the games, that everything is historically accurate, smart, fun, enjoyable. You want to get your kids involved. Go over, check out Flying Pig Games. Check out Old School Tactical. Go check out the Tiny Battle game. Huh?
Armageddon War,
which for the longest time has been one of my top 10 games of all time.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't forget what our man did here. A Most Fearful Sacrifice. If you want an experience, as a matter of fact, aren't they reprinting that?
Yeah, it just did a second edition Kickstarter, and I think you can go pre-order it now.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you can go pre-order that.
Second edition is the same as the first, except all the errata is taken care of. The tables are the right size. It's just a nicer version. Is just fixed up stuff.
And go check out Tiny Battles. If you want affordable games, especially if you don't have disposable income, I'm telling you right now, go there, check it out. You can get a bunch of games in cheap, and you'll have a wonderful time because they're made by smart people like our man Herman here. And Fred Manzo, who's done a lot of things. And Mark has done a whole bunch of things. You got to see some of the games that Mark has done. And you want to check out the Invader series. The trilogy is tremendous. It's fun. It comes in a bag. You won't regret it. Get yourself a little piece of plexiglass. Sit around the table with a bunch of friends and just get ready for a laugh riot, because it is just fantastic fun. And the trilogy is great. It's one of my favorites of all time. Magnificent Style, another fantastic game. And check out the catalog over at GMT as well. And at any cost. Matter of fact, I think that game there was the first that I did the review for it, and you had contacted me.
Yep.
I think that's how we started.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, it just hit me now. That's it. I used my enough brain for the rest of the day. I'm done. I'm done. But go get this stuff. This is stuff that if you are looking for things to have fun with, enjoyment, and not all the glitz and glam, cult of the new bullshit that you're going to find out there. All right? Go check this company out. Go check these companies out. I guarantee you're going to find something affordable, fun, and enjoyable. All right? You got to trust me on this. I never steered you guys wrong. Herman, I can't thank you enough for being my very first guest here on the
Thank you for the
podcast.
honor. It was wonderful.
I mean, it was either you or my granddaughter, and you went out a little bit. No, we've been very good friends, and I said if I was ever going to do a podcast, that you would be the first person I would want to talk to.
Well, thank you.
Sure enough, I actually got people listening to this thing, which is kind of shocking unto itself. But we've only done 11 episodes. This is our 12th, and we're doing all right. I'm kind of shocked, awesome. And I'm enjoying it too, which is because I could talk.
No doubt you would do well.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and as always, we'll be in contact with each other, folks. Until next time, on the other side of this segment, where I'll close out the show, it's your old pal Rob. We'll see you soon, everybody. Say again, thank you so much, Herman.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there you have it. A great interview with my good friend Hermann Luttman. We've got more people coming on the show. I'm hoping to do a bunch of interviews for a while on the podcast. You get to listen to them a week beforehand, and then you can kind of watch us horsing around also on the channel here if you don't get a chance to listen to the podcast. The podcast is usually longer. Not only will we have interview, but we'll have other stuff, reviews and things like that you guys can check out. So make sure you check out the Rob's Tabletop World podcast. And until next time, it's your old pal Rob. We'll see you soon, everybody.